So I suppose in a way that this is a sort of manifesto, in that eventually people are going to wonder, like, what's going on, how's business, how are things. Um, and of course, I'm happy to tell you that we started selling coffee on a website August 10th, and we've got about $1,000 in total sales in less than 2 weeks. And to start with that, so that you have some backstory, my name is Jared Seth Malat. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. I am 36 years old. I am an Eagle Scout. I am a United States Marine Corps infantry veteran and disabled. I am a Purdue alum, and I have a degree from DeVry in graphic design with a focus on multimedia production and marketing and advertising as other of the focus of my education. So a lot of what you've seen from me in the last couple years has been me producing video content for Stampede Blue. Okay, that have transitioned into doing podcasts. I now do 2 a week. I'm going to have another podcast, a college football podcast, that I'm going to shoot tomorrow. And I just wanted to tell my story, right? And of all the research that I've done and all the training that I've had, all the classes that I've taken in college, seminars I've sat through, the primary purpose of building a business is to answer a question. And frequently that question is referred to why? Why are you doing this? And the answer to that is we are in the middle of a climate crisis that the world has ever seen. And one of the things that you have to acknowledge is that regardless of the climate, new businesses are opening every single day. Businesses are planned far in the future. So when I decided I wanted to own my own business, and I've said this before, but really I had to ask myself, like, how are you going to try to build a business in the middle of a climate crisis? So part of our why is that I started out saying, well, most big business gets to be big business by maximizing its profits and minimizing its costs. And frequently when you break ethics, you're able to bottom out the costs on items, and that maximizes your profit margin, makes your shareholders happy, and ultimately your executives get to keep their jobs and their big bonuses. So I wanted to make sure that I was kind of at odds stylistically from big business on the whole. I think that we're due a business that focuses on being eco-friendly. And then part of being eco-friendly, I kind of realized, is that if you prioritize being highly ethical as well, the business just is going to flow a lot better because those things converge, right? Frequently, if something is eco-friendly, so it's good for the environment, it also stylistically matches up ethically too. It's ethical to be eco-friendly, and it's eco-friendly to be ethical. So those things kind of converge as the why. The why that I decided to start this business is that I wanted to set an example for future business owners that you don't have to get into the race to the bottom. That you can still aim high, deliver a high quality product, and look to the future and do all of the things that you want to do and love. And I want to be the example to that for you. Okay, so once I realized why I wanted to start a business, I wanted to start a business to set an example for future business owners to be eco-friendly and ethical, because those are the best ways to do business, especially given the climate, right? We need to do our part. And I've always wanted to own my own business. My dad owned a business when we were kids. We built synthetic putting greens. And then I've owned my own business. I've worked for small business since I graduated college. I worked for 5 years at what's now called Defenders, and that's about all I'll say about that. So I have a lot of experience in small business as an employee, from customer service to sales to data analysis to just data entry to management. So I've kind of seen a lot of everything but in the field, right? I wasn't a technician or a plumber, an HVAC tech, defender, but I have installed security systems. So my direct field experience is dated and unofficial. But I'd like to see, for example, in just security, I'd seen the whole industry, right? So when you'd seen the whole industry, um, I went to the bank in May of 2018 and said, I want to start my own business. And the financial advisor's name is Wayne at my bank out here in McCordsville. He said, well, what do you want to do? You're 36 years old, you're married, you don't have any kids, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'd love to own a board and card game shop. And he said, okay, we can definitely do that. Let me get some additional information. And then he came back to me and said, I would advise you to put yourself in a better financial position to do this. You want to make sure that you don't have a bunch of credit card debt, a bunch of ancillary debt. So I'm a new homeowner, right? So I'm still paying for furniture. I had to take a small loan to help move, and I took a small loan through the bank. So I knew I needed to get in a little better position. And with the help of my mom, I was able to pay off my car a year early. And we paid enough ahead on our mortgage that we had actually lowered our mortgage payment by over $100. So I try to put myself in the best financial position possible. And this I've done over the last year. But last May, to get back to the visit with the bank, I got told if you got to make it happen, we can make it happen. But we'll just tell you that a single line revenue business has a high propensity to failure. And of course, I know that. I've been part of the board and card game community since about 2008, so a little over a decade playing games out of my house. I host game nights with my wife. If you've been around, we love to play games. You've seen me at card shops. You've seen me at Magic tournaments. You see me at your conventions. So I've been to Hoosier Con, I've been to PopCon, I've been to Gen Con. I live in Indy, I might as well, right? Not to mention something I'm into, right? So once I met with the bank and got a realistic picture, and it just confirmed things that I already knew. With board and card game shops being a single line revenue business, they have a high propensity of failure. And then I asked, okay, Dream Crushers, what do I do now that you've kind of told me that my business idea, it's just so simple and niche that it's impossible to do anything but work 7 days a week and make a good living unless you're willing to cheat. And remember, we started this business saying we're going to be ethical, right? So we're not going to cheat. So I asked, what are my other options? And they told me flat out, we don't want to see food or alcohol in a business plan. And I said, okay. And I know the reason that you don't want food or alcohol as part of your business plan is because I've been a bartender and I've worked in food service. Food and alcohol, they have a pretty decent profit margin, but the cost to acquire the kind of inventory that you would need to start a restaurant or a bar or restaurant bar is just a high upfront cost, and then the money that you're making is just paying back your loan, right? For a long time. And this is how businesses are built, for the record. So it's not like I'm talking about something that's unprecedented. If I know borrowing a loan is going to be me the rest of my life, barely being able to pay my bills and pay back that loan, you're just setting yourself up for, your whole life's a 50-50, right? That's like a saying. But if you have an 80% chance of failure, it's not a 50-50, and that doesn't matter how good you are. So one of the things that I had to humble myself is saying, regardless of my experience, my breadth and depth of experience, and just being having quite a jack of all trades, I'd suppose, a master of none, right? So having kind of done my research, I didn't take that loan, right? And we didn't start a card shop, so I'm not sitting here talking about 1 year into ownership of a card shop. And instead, Wayne suggested that I add coffee to my business plan, and that I go home and I talk to my wife about involving her in my business, because if you're going to start a business, a brick and mortar business, it would be really nice if your spouse were involved, right? You wouldn't want to go live out your dream and not have your wife have any say in that, or have anything to gain from you doing that. And you know, Taylor's a pharmacy technician for a private pharmacy. So if I'm going to build a business, I got to appeal to my wife, right? So he told me, you know, go home and talk to your wife about what she'd want to do if you guys decide to start a business. So I went home and waited till Taylor got off of work. And we were sitting around chatting, just the post-work chat. What happened at work? How was work, babe? And she says, what'd you do today? It was my day off. And I said, well, I went to the bank. And I told them I want to start a board and card game shop, and they told me if I need to make it happen, I can make it happen, but that they prefer I was in a little better financial position before I took a loan. And she said, okay. And I asked her, I said, out of curiosity, Taylor, if you got to work every day the rest of your life, right, what would you want to do every single day? You got to be industrious to make ends meet. And she said, you know, my dream has been I want to move to the coast of Maine, and I want to live in a house on the beach, and I want to own a little coffee shop / bookstore. And once she said that, I had this huge smile on my face, like, how unique is it that the bank told me don't do food or alcohol, but consider adding coffee to your business plan, right? And she said, what? And I said, well, I asked the bank whether or not I should do it, and I explained to her just what I've told you. They wish I was in a little better financial position. If I need to make it happen, I could do it. And they told me there's an 80% chance you fail. So I didn't take the loan because I didn't see it as a high probability of success. And I had to reevaluate what's important, right? So our why will never change, right? We want to be an example to future businesses, to be ethical and eco-friendly about what you're doing. So once I realized I want to own a board and card game shop that serves coffee, it led me to research why businesses in my industry fail, and to look at other similar industries and try to glean information from available information, right? So, you know, the first thing I did was I looked up every card shop that I could think of in the Indianapolis area, and I evaluated them and kind of rated them myself. And I have kind of things that are valuable and important to me, and then beyond that, I look at their calendar, I look at how long they've been in business, and I'll kind of be able to tell you whether or not they're going to make it or not. And then I looked at the big regional players. So I live in Indianapolis, so that let me look at Ohio and Illinois and Michigan, and sort of the Midwest for references. And there are some, for the record, there are some great shops, and typically they're the biggest shop in town. They have a great competitive crowd, but their attendance is going to fluctuate every time a group of kids graduate, right? Because you're losing a class of players. So once I started looking outside of the Midwest, and I didn't really have to go as far outside the Midwest. For the record, one of our reference shops is Lodestone Coffee and Games in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Run by a great member of the Magic community, Ryan Overturf, who is the co-owner of Lodestone Coffee and Games. He's also a commentator for the SCG Tour and a great Magic player, and just an overall intelligent human being, and a great representative for our community. And then once we look at outside of the Midwest, really, we're kind of forced out to Toronto to look at Snakes and Lattes. And they have 4 of those in one city. So one of the things that we have here in Indianapolis, for example, we have a game store called Game Preserve. And there used to be several of them. They've all kind of converged into one now, as the markets there's a roller coaster, just like the stock market, in owning a board and card game shop. It's a unique wave to ride. So once we realize that we want to do coffee and games, I contacted all of the store owners that I know, both current and former, to just get as much information as I could from the people that have direct experience in the market that I'm entering. I looked at, like I said, regional players. I looked at national and international players. And then I just happen to have traveled a little bit. So I've traveled to play Magic. So I've been, namely off the top of my head anyway, Pittsburgh. I've been Cincinnati, Columbus, Louisville, of course like Indy. But I've also played up in Lafayette. I've played outside of Chicago. I've played in Las Vegas. So I've been all over the United States playing Magic, and been to the shops in the area just to kind of check out what's going on. So I like to think I have a lot of in-person research, as well as like personal experience is relevant in my industry. So once we figure out we want to do coffee and games, I went back to the bank and asked Wayne for reference points for coffee. And it just so happens that Wayne is from Oregon, specifically Yamhill County, which is like the coffee country. We have like wine country. Oregon is like coffee country. In Yamhill County, there's 150 coffee shops, and they have 100 clients, 110 plus clients in the county. So I wanted to first find a company that is capable of helping me. My wife and I decided that we didn't want to serve someone else's coffee per se, and that we wanted to have control over like the design of the bag, the name of the roast, just to make it a little more personal. So we were referred initially. I was given some points of research to research the major player in your industry, which is Starbucks, find out what they do well, find out what they do bad, what they're bad at, and how we can win in a heads-up competition against Starbucks. The only way to do that, of course, is to have higher quality coffee, and then your why has to be bigger than their why, right? I don't know what Starbucks motto is, right? But my motto is to set an example for future business owners by being first eco-friendly, and then ethical. But you could really put those either way, right? So once we realized we were going to serve coffee, we did a little research, and we found out that we wanted the packaging to be recyclable. And then once we found out, okay, we want to make sure that the package is recyclable, we want to make sure that we have some knowledge of where the coffee comes from. So in terms of coffee, thinking about starting a board and card game shop, and then all of a sudden I'm having to do all this research on coffee, right? Like there's two kinds of beans, Arabica and Robusto. They're grown primarily in what's called the coffee belt, which is within 100 to 200 miles of the equator either way. Most of the coffee that's grown and sold in the world is sold in third world countries. And I know you've heard me say this before, but when your country doesn't have labor laws and doesn't require minimum wage, a living wage, or doesn't even require minimum age of your employees, right? There's a good chance that the people that are doing that work are getting paid either nothing to speak of, or nothing at all. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to speak with a company that was at least attempting to acquire their coffee ethically, and that lets us maintain our ethos, right? So I called, I did research on Starbucks. I called Dutch Brothers. They're a major West Coast player. They have great coffee. Mostly to find out who the roaster is, and found out that they roast their own. And then of course we got a hold of Joe's Coffee Garage. There are other roasters out there in the world. There's roasters in the city of Indianapolis. Won't speak on that. There are regional roasters that are real hot. There are other coffee and game sort of brands out there. There are even other veteran-owned coffee companies, right? So when I started calling around, and I'll just kind of lay it out there for you, The difference between big business and small business is that in big business, an IVR, so like a robot, answers the phone for you, and in small business, a person answers the phone. Um, I'll make some concessions whether or not I'll do business with you based on that alone. Um, but at least if you're going to have an IVR, have one of your employees read it because it connects people to your business. And I can't believe I just had to like explain that. And it doesn't typically cost you a bunch. And if that person's awesome, then you should pay them. But realistically, once we kind of called around and I called Caravan Coffee, a human being had read I'm assuming one of their secretaries, had read their IVR. I was connected with sales and business development and met a paragon. I met someone who I deeply respect. His name is Chris McMullen. He no longer works at full time for Caravan. He's gone back to school to further his education. He wants to be the Patch Adams for terminally ill kids, so I wish him well. I talked to Chris and I told him what I wanted to do, that I wanted to own a board and card game shop and I needed to work on who I was going to get my coffee from. And kind of asked me some questions. You know, I never went to barista school, neither did my wife. But I've worked in food service. I've been a bartender. I've made coffee for myself every day as long as I can remember. And he said, "I tell you what I'll do for you. If you could find a way out here, I'll spend a day teaching you how to make coffee and all the things that you need to know the coffee side of your business. And then the second day you're here, I'll take you around to some coffee shops in the area, and then we'll teach you all about the coffee business and how our business operates and how we can help you and all that." And then we started an email back and forth. Within 5 minutes of talking to him, I had prices. I knew exactly what I was getting into. Their coffee comes in a 100% recyclable container that we can modify. We can modify their roasts, so we didn't have to take their roasts. We can kind of create our own. And then they explained the process of making coffee to us and how their coffee is better, and it is. Ask anybody that's had our coffee or has had Caravan Coffee, and they'll tell you it's the best coffee in the world, and I believe it. So once I talked to Chris and established that relationship, it gave me confidence to approach that. I got confidence from speaking with Chris. He's very clearly an expert in his industry. He had something like 20 years in the industry, 15 years as a trainer for baristas, and 20 years as a barista. And he told me about Caravan's facility. For the record, Caravan Coffee is located in Newberg, Oregon. I think the world of that business. I wouldn't have gotten business with them otherwise, right? But basically what happened was I'll say like February of last year, so before I went to the bank, I had been kind of talking about starting a business, and a local Magic player / just great overall person, my angel investor, had offered me investment, and I told him, I kind of want to be like self-funded. I just have this thing about I don't want anybody telling me what to do, right? So my angel investor I got in contact with and said, "Hey, we want to pursue coffee. Obviously, if we don't want to do food and alcohol, coffee is a great addition to a board and card game shop, because if you think about it, what's going to make you want to leave a board and card game shop if you're just going there to have fun, right? And it's all about having fun in my business, right? Every night is family game night. What would make you leave? Well, I'd get tired, or I'd get hungry, right? And that's why people leave board and card game shops. And for the record, for tabbing in a future conversation, same can be said for like a console or PC gaming center or an arcade. Typically, they just don't have good enough concessions, which is what we're going to get into, right? So what happened was I got an angel investment for $20,000. which we've used to start our business. This includes the smallest things like registering our business with the state, but most importantly, building a website and establishing our business, establishing the relationships with our suppliers for the product that we're going to want. So we've done all that work, just kind of nailing down very specifics. So what ended up happening was I got an investment. I got Taylor and I got plane tickets out to Portland and a car ride from Chris to and from the airport. Thank you so much. I can't imagine how much money and time and effort that saved us. And then once we got out there, we stayed in an Airbnb. We got up early in the morning before the sun came up. We went into a coffee shop and had local coffee made. That was Caravan Coffee. It was fantastic. I don't even remember the name of that place, but even their breakfast was good. And then we went to Caravan when they opened. And they don't own a coffee shop themselves. They have a tasting room. And it's just two baristas standing behind a 6-foot bar, and we have pictures of it. It's awesome. They probably have pictures on their website. And they make it all. So the first thing they did was I had a pour over, which was absolutely amazing. I can't imagine doing that every day for coffee, but I get it. I had the best espresso I've ever had in my life. I had a mocha. I had a latte. I had it all kind of in a short amount of time. About max myself out on how much coffee I could consume. And then they spent the entire day just teaching us how to make coffee. How to make espresso perfectly, how to heat milk perfectly, and then how to clean and maintain your machinery, because those are things that are going to cost you a bunch of money if you don't do. So once we were able to learn all the small things, right? Like making drip coffee is not difficult, right? You put some grounds in a thing, measure it out, and makes your pot, right? There's a little fine detail to that, but we'll get to that. So once we kind of figured out how to make it, we kind of toured the area, got to go to other coffee shops. One of the things that I'll point out is that there are two Dutch Brothers in Newburgh, and remember, Dutch Brothers is like the Starbucks on the West Coast. They were basically empty in Newburgh, but every coffee shop we went to had multiple customers in it. So if you think you can't start a business, I want you to keep that in mind, that out in coffee country, the small businesses they've taken over. They have a better product. So once we kind of learned how to make coffee, once we kind of saw the area, we kind of started asking questions like, hey, what else do you serve outside of coffee and tea and stuff like that? And we had chai tea, for example, so we know we're going to be serving that because it's amazing. It tastes awesome. But we'll serve you coffee and tea and stuff like that. But what else could we serve? And we kind of ran into the idea of an Italian soda. It's a caffeine-free version of like a flavored soda. It has some sugar in it, sure, but it doesn't have caffeine in it, so it's something you can drink it basically any time of the day. It's just sugar. It's just sugar water. It's fizzy sugar water. Fancy way to say it. And then if you don't want coffee, you don't want Italian soda, what else could we serve? And we're going to serve a flavored Red Bull. So we'll sell you a Red Bull if you just want a Red Bull, man, or lady. But we also want to sell you like a flavored drink that is a Red Bull based beverage that you just can't get anywhere else. Most of the time you'll see things like alcohol in Red Bull or like a frozen Red Bull. So we knew we just wanted to keep it on ice and be unique in it and just do our own thing. So once we kind of established our drinks, I remember my wife, Taylor, looked me in the eye and said, hey, we got to serve box water in our business, right? So it does cost more, for the record. It tastes arguably better. It tastes just the same as bottled water. It does have a higher cost to me as I drink it in my home. I'm sitting in my house. But also serve it in my business. But think about, a business will charge you $3 or $4 for a bottle of water, right? That they're only paying like 60 cents for or less. For example, I think it's about 60 cents for your typical bottled water. So rather than try to make a bunch of money selling no bottled water, right? I visited a couple stores that serve box water and said, yeah, it took a little getting used to, but now we sell a ton of boxed water. So that told me we're on the right path if we end up at boxed water. It does cost probably about like $1 and some change. But if they're going to charge you $3 or $4 anyway, why not put a better product in your hand, right? So that's me saying I'm prioritizing being eco-friendly and ethical, and that's probably a good way to do it. To start with your drink, right? And remember, Red Bull comes in an aluminum can. Your Italian soda is fueled by Pellegrino or carbonated water, and that comes in an aluminum can. Our coffee comes in a recyclable container, and then our sodas, our water option, right, is all biodegradable. It's all reusable, recyclable material. So once we kind of knock those out, and those are all great, right? Like, hell yeah, all those things are awesome. And we got to focus on what are we going to serve. So in effort to be eco-friendly, it benefits you from shortening your supply line. And what that means, the distance between you and your supplier, if it's short, it's probably going to cost you less and take you less time to receive an order for product. So once we're looking at coffee, Italian soda, Red Bull, water, what do we pair it with? One of the first things that Taylor brought up was Dots Pretzels. It's a seasoned pretzel twist out of the Dakotas, but there's a processing center in Kansas. They just have a great seasoned pretzel. We'll serve them in like 1.5 ounce or 5 ounce bags, or we'll buy bulk and repackage ourselves to offer like a better option. Somewhere between 1.5 and 5 is what I imagine we'll do, is portion it out better. Because I think probably like a 3.5, 4 ounce bag's probably better than a 5 is a couple servings, and 1.5 just doesn't seem like it gets it. Just how I feel. But once we realized, okay, we're going to do Dots Pretzels, what else are we going to serve? There are a couple really popular candy options in Indiana, in that there's Goods Candy Shop out in Anderson, who I've met Jerry, who basically runs a place, and we got an order from them. And then for our second tasting party here, we've ordered a shipment from Albanese, which is up in Maryville, Indiana. So we're trying out different candy options, because we think we're gonna, you want to serve your chocolate and your gummies that is for your kids, up to your mid-grade to high-grade chocolate, for the adults, the people with a little more refined sense of taste. What goes better with a great cup of Joe than an awesome piece of chocolate, right? So once we kind of get pretzels and chocolate out of the way, then we wanted to offer a cold something that you don't have to heat up, that's a protein. It keeps hunger pang away. You have to offer something unique enough that people are willing to do it, and that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg to acquire. That kind of meets our other standards. So what we found is, up in Warsaw, Indiana, there's a place called Cow Chips Jerky that is the only daily state inspected jerky maker, because their jerky is dehydrated. So because their jerky is dehydrated, the 2 ounce portion that they serve you is more than one serving. It actually is. It has more of the consistency of like a potato chip as opposed to like rawhide, right? And it comes in different flavors, and they've got small options for bagging 2 ounces. And we'll start serving that stuff in the store, because we don't want to acquire that and give it away just yet. So once we had like a cold protein knocked out, we had your pretzel, your chip knocked out, because you don't want to just serve you food from big business, right? Stuff you can get at the gas station, you can just get at the gas station. But in terms of coming into my business, the way to make yourself stand out is by having unique relationships with local businesses. So, for example, once we knocked out we kind of realized there's a couple options for candy locally. Then we moved to, we decided we wanted to serve popcorn. And so by being able to pop our own popcorn, it's a snack we can make a bunch of, and that we can sell easily. And we think that's another good driver for us. And then once we kind of got there, we thought that we were done, but basically, I'm along the way. Remember, our why can't change, but our what can change, right? Because remember, I just wanted to run a board and card game shop, and now here I am, 30 minutes into telling you about my concessions, right? So once we did this research on our concessions, and we thought we had a good enough set of concessions, I moved to talk to someone that had a lot of experience in the concession industry specifically. So I met a man named Bill, and Bill basically said, all that sounds good. You can make $1 million off a panini machine, and you want to make sure you serve a soft pretzel with cheese, popcorn, which we came to agreement on, and then nachos and cheese. And then you got to think about a hot protein that doesn't require an oven or increased freezer space. And one of the things you got to do if you're going to serve Red Bull, which is involved in esports, you might as well also serve Totino's pizza rolls, right? Because they're also invested in esports. So that's another thing that we'll be serving at our tasting party. Is we're going to see are Totino's pizza rolls good enough as a heated protein option, as a concession in a business, as opposed to just having nachos or pretzel or popcorn or jerky even. We wanted to make sure we run the whole gamut. And then we'll still kind of consider the panini press and what it can do. And then I've even had a buddy of mine that's a chef come around and say, hey, I can make you a little quiche that you could heat up in a toaster oven and serve at breakfast. And it wouldn't cost you a bunch of money, and you could charge $1 or $2 for it. Perfect idea. I do appreciate you, David. And then, so once we kind of have established this concessions, and once we were validated that concessions were to be the focus because of the failure rate of a card shop or a PC and LAN center, concessions has to be the most important part. So this is the meat of the conversation, right? Is our food and drink is on point. So we have that in the bag. And then along the way, before I met Bill, I talked to Sean, a buddy of mine that is fully invested in esports, a big data guy, and an old friend of mine. And Sean and I talked, and he said, why haven't you considered PC and console gaming in your business? And it just so happens that before I had talked to Sean, I talked to a Marine brother of mine. His name is Roderick. And Roderick had brought up, hey, you know what you could do is you could have like a lounge area where there's just some comfortable seating and some TVs on the wall. And what you could do is you could spend, like $60 to $100 per TV and add an old school console to it, charge people either tournament entry or hourly use, and then you can make some good money that way, based on the console that you choose, right? And it ranges, there's consoles that we could reliably use the Sega Saturn, and it's about $60. Or we could go all the way up to, what is the new PlayStation 5 is going to be like a $500 machine. Similarly, I think the Xbox One S is also $400 or $500. Same with the PlayStation, and then same with the Switch, right? You want them all, but if we're trying to be budget conscious, we were just thinking about the Sega Saturn, right? But then I was talking to Sean, and Sean said, had you considered PC and console gaming? And I said no, and the reason is there's already a major player in Indianapolis called eBash, and similarly to board and card game shops, PC and console gaming centers also have a high failure rate. Again, it's a single line business. So once I had that conversation with Sean, it kind of confirmed that another avenue that I was considering became even more of a likelihood, because Sean said that we may be able to help you. You're going to have to kind of continue to form this idea. And then from there, once we kind of established, okay, we're going to do a board and card game shop with great concessions, and we're also going to get into PC and console gaming. Then we have to work on what are the more important things outside of that business. So the first thing that I found out as a result of wanting to start a board and card game shop that also is a PC and console LAN center is that I need to borrow more money than I can. So once you realize it costs more than you'll be able to borrow, I refused to give up on my dream. I said, fine, I'll start it in my house. I have an investment, I have a website, and then I realized what's a good way to get word out about your business outside of just straight up giving stuff away. That's a net zero. So what we decided to do is we wanted to establish merchandise. So I moved from there instead of designing my own logo or graphics. I went to someone that was a professional. I basically posted on Facebook, anybody I know, a graphic designer, and I got a couple of different responses. And then I wound up speaking to who's now my visual virtuoso, the best graphic designer in Indianapolis, by the way. Look at our merch. I mean, just look how clean this logo is. The logo is so clean. It's so clean. And the hoodies cost the most, and they were the most sold at our first party. So for anybody to tell you can't do something, you can do this. You just got to do your research. You got to be able to do your math, show your math. So once we kind of realized what we were going to do, then we had to realize what's the most important thing to us. So still thinking from I'm going to have to fund this myself standpoint, I evaluated what is the most important after space. We realized it was size. We wanted a space that we could get into and fill up, as opposed to a space we get into and have to move because they just don't have enough space for us. And then once we found a few locations, then we started to evaluate what is going to be important to us. Like, is it cost of the space? Is it amenities the space has? How new the space is? What's around the space? Sure. But what we've evaluated as important is fiber internet. And I did a little research. I reached out to a buddy of mine that's a network engineer. Hi, John. And John said, you could go with Comcast. They're going to cost this amount. Or you could go with a local company, 9Star, which is out of Greenfield, Indiana. And they'll have a cheaper service, and it'll be as high a quality. So once we realized where we're going to be located, that pushed us into Hancock County, which is one county east of Indy. So we're Donut County, just east of Indianapolis. Probably looking about the McCordsville area, by the way, if you're still trying to figure out where we're going to be located. Just a half hour outside of the city, just off I-70 coming into the city from the east, is about where we're looking. And then once we did that, and I started to do the things that I need to do with a business, and that's one thing that I'll be working toward, is I want to get into basically being an advisor to somebody that wants to start a business, not more like build a brand, not just start a business, right? Because anybody can start a business. You can start a business tomorrow, but to build a brand, I kind of realized once you get into several lines of revenue, right? So once we have merchandise, t-shirts, sweatshirts, coasters, mugs with our logo on it, and we're going to get magnets, we're going to get additional merchandise. Once we realize we're doing a bunch of merch sales, and we're selling a bunch of coffee, which are our strengths, and largely the reception of our other ideas, the popcorns, the candies, have all been positive. What we've decided to do is to go ahead and launch the e-commerce portion of our business, because this is the second thing that a lot of businesses nowadays fail to do. So most businesses fail to have like a good online presence. They fail to capitalize on internet networking as opposed to like in-person networking. that I'm still kind of 50-50 on. Some of the times I go out to these networking events and I feel like I got something out of it. I met somebody that I'm gonna have another conversation with, somebody that I can learn from or has something to learn from me. There's no better joy than being a teacher, right? And there's no better gift than to be taught, right? So once you kind of figure out the in-person networking has a 50-50 as to whether or not it's actually valuable, then we look to the internet, right, for validation of our ideas or whatever. So what we did was we realized we needed to talk to a professional in that market that could push us in the right direction and give us a baseline expectation of what we need to be doing as a business as far as the internet goes. And that's Eli. And Eli is going to be a big part of my business moving forward. So what we established was we need to be posting on social media, telling our story, telling people what we're doing as we're doing it, giving them like kind of a live look in, with a baseline objective of a minimum 3 posts a day on each of social media platforms. And the way we kind of coin it is 1 for the business, right? So 1 where we talk about the business and what we're doing, 1 where we talk about what we are doing personally, right? So if one of the ways I'm going to advertise my business is I like to play video games, and I had to buy a computer for my business. So I figured I would get a computer that was capable of not only doing the kind of Excel sheet, Word, WordPress, social media work I'll need to be doing, but also had a capability of allowing me to record myself like you see me now, and then also have the ability to stream video games. So I love to play all video games. Right now I'm starting to play through World of Warcraft Classic. I still love my Call of Duties, and I love Apex, and I really want to like Fortnite, but I kind of like all kinds of games, and I'm going to stream those, wearing my merchandise, hopefully meeting friends, talking about business, talking about life, but I just see it as a good way to interject myself into my industry, is to do what I'm already doing, which, if you're friends with me, real close friends of mine, I play video games, have been playing on a PlayStation for a while now. I got a computer and I'm kind of torn whether I want to keep playing on PS4, PlayStation Network, so I can play with a couple close friends, or just transition fully to PC because it's just got a wider array of players. There are lots of PC players. I know that more people own PlayStations, but when it comes to streaming and stuff like that, you'd rather play against a little older crowd or play with an older crowd. So once we kind of established our social media priorities, 1 for you, 1 for us, right, and then 1 for everybody, and that's where we need to work on is every day I kind of want to help out in some way. So in addition to posting about my business, posting about my industry, or posting personally, right, like getting 1 for me, we also need to focus on making the world a better place, providing some method of positivity, whatever kind of avenue a business wants to take. A lot of businesses have gone towards like social media management and having somebody that's really good at coming up with memes, come out with memes for your business. But there's still something to be said for a thorough direction of content. The likes and stuff aren't going to make you money. What's going to make you money is having a product people want to buy, right? So once we've kind of established the intent of our business, the why and the what can change, right? Your what is always going to change. And then our when is, for the record, like I told you, we started this business on August 10th, 2019. So in 19 days, I have about $1,000 in sales. And this business was built July 10th. So in 30 days, we conceived, planned, and executed the establishment of a business, and in 19 days have about $1,000 in sales. Now, obviously, we're going to expand that market. So one of the things that we want to do is that since I know this is going to cost me more money than I can possibly borrow, I need to put myself in an even better financial position. So what I'm working on now is, as a business owner, I don't want several things. I don't want a bad loan, right? And I also don't want to give up percent ownership of my business, because right now I'm 100% veteran owned and I'm the sole owner, right? And typically when people start a business, they give up a percentage of their ownership for funding, or they give up their future in a predatory loan situation, and that's not where I want to be. And I don't want a blank check. I don't want somebody to come through and just angel give me money and let me go. That's not really what I want. But what I want to do is I want to demonstrate that you really can start a business out of your house in 2019. And of course I hope you'll help me do that. That's kind of part of making this video, is to explain why we're here, where we're at. So what I've done is I've done all the math on what it's going to cost me. I have a profit and loss sheet that I work on every single day to kind of refine the what's this going to cost and what can it make. And then along the way, having started networking, so that's where I'm trying to segue to. It took me a while to get there, right? In using LinkedIn, which is a dynamic platform, I've actually made sales off LinkedIn. It's not most of my sales. Most of my sales are off Facebook. IG and Twitter, I don't think have actually resulted in a sale for us, but we're 19 days in. Come on now. But yeah, largely Facebook, family, friends, and then LinkedIn's actually resulted in what I would call like a stranger sale, right? Where an actual unique customer that wasn't aware of you up front, right? So in part of networking, I met a man named Tim, who's a great business mind, and he told me my business idea that he kind of got through from me to some people, and I got contacted by some people. Okay, so once I kind of got into networking, I got connected with a business here in Indianapolis that prioritizes on tax incentives for businesses. And they're for profit, but they're local, and they've only been in business a few years. They got a lot of younger people. And then what ended up happening is we realized that we have a lull that we have to plan for. So giving a little bit of industry information, right? Coffee shops are primarily going to be busy between like 6 a.m. and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So when we were out in Oregon, we saw a lot of coffee shops closing at 3 or 2 or 4 p.m., something like that. And here in Indiana, on the opposite end, there are a lot of restaurants that don't open till 4, right? So what I realized early on, somewhere before probably coffee, right? I realized that if I'm gonna rent a space and I'm renting it from you, I'm gonna use it, right? I want to make use of paying for 24 hours of use. I don't want to be open 24 hours. I don't think that's realistic. But I want to be open and make money, right? And I want to be making money on property I own too, right? I mean, I started a business in my house, right? So you want to be in a position to make money as much as you can. So once we realized, well, 8 hours of the day, 6 a.m. to 2 o'clock, we're busy. Well, most, for example, like Magic events or like a Pokemon event, they don't start until 7 o'clock, except on the weekend. So if you think about, well, what are you going to do between 2 and 7 o'clock? So after I explained my idea out several times, I ran into someone that said, you know what? You could be an after-school program. I'm imagining it probably costs less to let my kid come to your business as opposed to going to a babysitter, daycare. And I said, I've got family. I don't have kids, but I have a family member that have kids, and they pay for childcare anywhere from like a couple $100 a week to $500 a week to even more than that, which I can't imagine. And so in talking out my business plan and talking to different people in different groups, it was the tax specialist that said, your business idea is so unique and you're such a unique individual. I appreciate you, Brittany. if you offer to do like an after school program and you can save parents money on after school care, and reward like the good kids and stuff like that, requires student ID and a report card. You could be in line for more tax incentives and things like grants, to help build your business. And then further, because you're going to do like after school, well, we're not going to actually do after school care, right? But we're going to be like an after school program for kids. Think about the YMCA, except for no sitting in a circle and playing Duck Duck Goose, right? We're doing what kids are doing, want to do anyway, right? Play video games, play board games, play card games, be on a computer, be on their cell phone. So once we kind of realized, we want to reach, you know, the younger crowd, we want to reach the older crowd, we kind of want to be the full family business. Somewhere in there, we can, after, yeah, like I said, after I networked, and I'm still networking. I actually have a meeting with Tim tomorrow. So Brittany got us excited about the opportunity that a space may want you in it and may be willing to have you not have to pay rent and maybe even not have to pay for the build out because of the service that you're providing to your community. So that's where we are now. For the record, I just explained to you, however long this took, exactly how we conceive the business, how the business has been developed, all the way up to that's where we are now. So once I went to the bank the last time and they asked me how much I wanted, and I said, oh, I'm going to need $200,000 or $300,000, that was before we talked about the PCN Land Center. So now that I know, I'm going to need probably like $500,000 or more dollars, I would have to have $50,000 to $100,000 down, right? And I only had a $20,000 investment. So what I have to do is turn that $20,000 somehow into $50,000 to $100,000, but I'm not going to do that by asking you to give me anything, right? So what I'm asking is that if you want to support me, right? But more importantly, 100% veteran-owned business that has world-class coffee, light, medium, and dark roasts. We've even got them named funny. They're video game and pop culture references. The packaging's clean. If I had a bag here on hand, I'd show it to you. I'll ship it to you. If you're local, I'll meet up with you. I've had people come to my house and get coffee. I've had people stop by and just have a cup of coffee. But yeah, if you pay me, I'll ship it to you. And then just to give you an update on what we're working toward, I am in the process of using my Patreon account, which I have never used. I've never asked anyone for anything. We're going to use that as our coffee club. So what we're going to do is let you get your coffee from us monthly. Let us charge you for it. We'll send it to you. We'll send you a little newsletter, keep you updated, maybe throw in a sticker, something like that, just to kind of sweeten the deal a little. And then once we kind of establish our coffee club, we're going to set up Kickstarter, and we're going to use the Kickstarter tiered support option to offer loot crates, right? So because we have merchandise available, I'm sure there's people out there that want one of everything, right? My mom bought one of everything, right? And then there are going to be people that just want some of the stuff or most of the stuff or just a bag of coffee and a t-shirt. That's what we're going to use Kickstarter for, right? To increase our visibility by using social media and these crowdfunding platforms. But I'll never ask you for money. I mean, obviously, hey, if somebody drops off a case of money at my house and says, build the Taj Mahal, Jared, I'll do that. But unless that lightning strikes and I start seeing unicorns and leprechauns on my driveway, I have to do business honestly, right? So what we're doing in practice is we've been selling coffee on our website. We've had a tasting party. So a little over a week ago, we had our first tasting party. We made so much coffee that my driveway smelled like coffee. Like, how cool is that? We had a bunch of family and friends over. They bought coffee. They bought merchandise. Family and friends are a great support network. And then we're going to branch that out. So we started marketing a little, actually spending money to like promote on Facebook specifically because it has a return for me already. And then we may want to promote maybe on LinkedIn if that's available. But once we had like the friends and family party, we're gonna open it up a little bit to like a larger subsect of our friends. And what we're doing here is just trying to get you come have a cup of this coffee, try this little chippy chip, this little snacky snack. Tell me what you think about it. And then we're going to try to cultivate the kind of environment that we want in our business. So this our second tasting party that we're having this Saturday. Hit me up if you want details, if you'd like to come. Where we're going to focus on, because I'll have my close friends there Saturday morning for a fantasy football draft that I'm hosting. And then Saturday afternoon, we're going to focus on, again, another tasting party. Probably won't serve as much coffee, right? Because it's the afternoon. And then we're going to focus on increasing our serving. So we're going from popcorn and candy and coffee and drinks to this week we're going to serve those soft pretzels and cheese. We're going to serve those nachos and cheese. We're going to serve Totino's pizza rolls. And again, just looking for confirmation that those are good directions to go. And if we need to continue to expand that concession line, we want to do that before we actually get in business. So that's for the record. If you're looking for why spend money to host a party? Well, the objective is when you are building a business, this comes from Godin, this comes from Simon Sinek, name your favorite TED Talk, right? They tell you that once you establish your why, your what, your where we're going to be located, how you're going to do that, which is what I'm explaining to you. Who are you marketing your product to? The way I chose to do this is because we have a website and a Facebook and an IG and a Twitter, and we have a LinkedIn page. We're already kind of putting ourselves out there in those markets, and until those markets start hitting, right? So until strangers start investing in us as a business by buying our product, right? It's probably important that you have the support and approval of the people that, if they're going to be around, they're going to come around you anyway, right? So that's family and friends. Taylor's family's from the east side. My family's in Indiana a lot too. And they came down and they've supported. It's important that those people show up, drink our drink, because they don't stand to gain off lying to us, right? So a lot of people are going to lie to us, but your family's not going to lie. So our family said, hey, the coffee's great, these snacks are great, good idea, man. This week what we're going to focus on is more of the ambiance, like the style that we're going to go with. The music that you're hearing, that lo-fi music, I could sit here and talk forever, right? Because I kind of just, right? You just kind of, everything is fine, right? So what we're doing now is we're going to focus on the games and kind of the ambiance we want to set. Saturday is the first big college football weekend. Last week we had games on Thursday night. We have games tonight. That's true. But then Saturday is a full slate of college football games. I'm pretty sure there's probably preseason football too. So we want to kind of have that up with the volume off and be playing kind of music. This kind, just the lo-fi hip-hop. It's just really easy to listen to. And then we want to play games. So we talked about, of course, being werewolf fans. I have a buddy of mine, John, that's put out Wolves of Mercia. And we want to support that. We want to play games people like to play. But more importantly, we just want people to see the kind of environment that we're trying to create and doing it at our house, right? So last week we spent a lot of time in the kitchen showing people coffee and making people drinks and yapping and having a good time, right? And this week we want to focus on gaming. We want to see our early supporters, what games are they into, so that we can kind of make sure that those people are always a big part of our business, no matter what happens. And then, so to wrap that up, the final thing I realized, once you realize how you're going to build your business, is we have to decide, is it scalable, and how do we want to scale? So to answer this question, we want to create a model using inventory control systems. I'm going to invest my private Magic collection in my business so that people can see how an inventory control system should work from a business that is going to support TCGs like Pokemon and Magic. And then what we're gonna do is as we build out our business online is we're gonna continue to host parties. We're going to continue to try to get out into the communities that we are already a part of in person, to be able to say, hey, here we are, to interject ourselves, to try to be helpful and kind to other people. And then ultimately, like I said, my hope is, with a little momentum and a little bit of just, hey, I'd like to think it's less important than it really is, but that that share, that comment on our social media is a rocket ship. It's jet fuel. It not only sustains you when you're otherwise not being productive, right? But that interaction on social media makes us more visible to your friends who may be interested in our business. That may lead us into even a better position. So if you think about listening to me talk, and then what you'd like to see that applied, and then you think you can help, the best way to do that without even spending money is like, share, and comment, right? And then if you don't want to come to our events and you don't want to spend money, if you come across something you think may be help to us, that's a good way to help. It's just to point us in the right direction, right? And so that's where I'll kind of wrap it up. Like I said, at this point, we've kind of narrowed it down to where we want to be. We have a unique enough idea that could be seen as a public service, that it may affect what kind of money we need, right? Obviously, if I don't have to worry about paying for rent or a build out, right, that saves me $100,000 or more when I'm starting a business. So it's important to understand that, we've really only been in business for 19 days. 19 days. First conceived, of course, July 10th. So here we are. I just want to give you an update. Here's about 49 days into business, and kind of give you a little what we're kind of looking for. Of course, Brittany, I'd love to hear back from you, and the people there at Resource. But yeah, so we're, all we're looking for now is the best deal for us that will give us the best projection of where we need to get to with our remaining investment, and the fact that we started our business, right? So all we need to do is probably get to, I'm assuming, something along the lines of like $50,000-$60,000, probably 50 or 60K would kind of let me pay off this little ancillary debt that I have. It would allow us to pay back our investment and then have a considerable down payment on a loan. Because even if the space is free, so I'll just tell you this, even if the space is free, we probably still need $300,000-$400K, which is going to, again, cost probably $30,000 or $40,000. And that, you just have to have that in hand to put down to take a loan on this business. So that's what we're doing now. We certainly have, we'd like to think we have some momentum established. You can always find us at Bazaar, BAZAARGRIND, Bazaar Grind, on Twitter, on IG, Instagram. You can find us on LinkedIn if you search Bazaar, BAZAARGRIND, Coffee and Games. You'll find us on Facebook. You'll find us on LinkedIn. Drop us a like. Let us know. If you got any ideas. Like I said, we know where we want to be. We know what we're selling. We know why we're doing it. I've got everything that I need except for a location that is the best deal for us. That is ideal. Our objective would be to be in the epicenter of a bunch of schools, a bunch of neighborhoods, and we're out in an underserved area, so there's bound to be a space that'll come open soon. Obviously, if we were to do well enough, we could even consider buying a space and building it ourselves. And my brother owns a construction company, so who better to kind of have to take that on as I got a family member that builds buildings. So yeah, just kind of giving you the whole gamut of what we're doing here. And what we're trying to do. And I guess one of the things I know I forgot to mention, the purpose of doing like PC and LAN gaming, PC and console gaming, is those are still that's esports, just like Magic, just like Pokemon is a tabletop version of an esport, in that there's still competitive events that you can watch on the internet. And then similarly, there's Hearthstone, there's what else is there? Fortnite, and then like Apex, Call of Duty. We'll want to meet with local streamers, regional streamers, international streamers. We want to host them in our business and raise them up for raising us up, as a kind of you help us, we help you. But then more importantly, what we want to do is the kids that start out young playing a game, they tend to evolve into better people. So most of my close friends, most of my most ardent supporters are the people that I've met playing Magic, for example, or that I've met from LinkedIn, or I've met from hanging out outside of my home, just going out and being social. But what's going to be more helpful and impactful is not only that after school program, right? It's a cool idea. Thank you to the people that helped me there, which is, again, Resource and Brittany Mann. But yeah, once you kind of get that in your head, then you realize, well, we have a great opportunity to help these kids that take to games and that want to play them competitively, whether that's finding an organization or getting a scholarship and going to college. So one of the things that we know is about to happen is colleges, professional sports organizations all over the worldwide are all investing in esports. And we want to be kind of the place you go to get there, right? Because you, like I said, everybody wants to say you can do this. You become a professional gamer from your home. A lot of kids can't. Whether they don't have, they got a house full of kids, so they never have a quiet room to play in. They'd have to share a unit with somebody, and a lot of the times when you're sharing a computer with somebody, it's something that you want to use to game professionally on, or you don't have any guidance. Like, your parents can't help you become a gamer. They could give you a computer, they could set you up, but once they do that, they're just supportive, right? Like, hey, good luck. So some people are going to need validation in the form of going into a brick and mortar business that says, oh, you want to play whatever, show us. And then how we're going to award that are the people that are involved with our business, right? So if you're a Magic player, why wouldn't you want to come play at a shop that wants to propel competitive Magic players towards these organizations, to getting you a college scholarship, right? It's a great investment vehicle. And then similarly, investing in gaming is the future anyway, right? If you look at what's a big future market, is going to be esports as a whole, and whether that's video, audio production, editing, being on air, being a gamer, there's all kinds of avenues within the gaming realm, just like there are with TV and all form of entertainment. The esports, in my eyes, is the UFC of the future, right? If you recall, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the UFC went from, probably about 100,000 fans to just overnight, just be blowing up and being a multi-billion-dollar industry. Similarly, esports is going to do the same thing, and it already has. I mean, it was a $1.1 billion industry in 2018 without a brick-and-mortar presence. So one of the things that kind of propels me is the notion that people still pay $5 to go to a run-of-the-mill restaurant to watch a UFC fight, right? Not only are we going to be like a board and card game shop, a place you can go, and of course you want to play constructed Magic, constructed Pokemon, any board game where I have a board game library, we'll have the inventory behind that to actually sell you, so when you try it and then you want to buy it, you can actually do that here. We're also going to take games in on trade. So Bill gave us this idea. So if you want to trade in that board game, we'll give you some credit for it. So you're not paying full price for a game every time. You play a game out, and you get to the point where you haven't quite damaged it yet. It's still in really good condition. It's got all the pieces. Instead of letting that thing collect dust, bring it to me. I'll add it to my board game library. I'll give you a little credit for it, and then eventually we'll pull that out of our board game library and we'll sell that. As it gets towards the end of its shelf life, and then, like I said, we'll sell you hourly usage of like a PC or a console. We'll sell you um, on the idea we want to be an esports team. In that I don't want to take money from players in exchange for a service. More like we just like to see a bunch of people with our merchandise on, right, and then go from there. As far as being an esports organization, and I see myself more as like an agent, somebody that I just want to help you, man. I don't want anything for it. I just want to make sure you get treated right in a new industry, because there's a lot of, you know, I like to tell people, buying, you know, getting into esports and getting it with the right org is like buying a car. Not only are you about to put something out for them, like money in the idea of buying a car, but what you're going to get in return kind of varies, right? So it'll really depend on the organizations that see our idea and come to us and say, hey, we want to be involved. So of course, if we're looking for big corporate partners, the stone cold in your face, right, is Red Bull, it's Totino's Pizza Rolls, because those guys are already in the esports game. And then what we also want to do is we want to make sure we maintain that local vibe. So one of the things that we'd also thought about is having a little stage, doing a little stand-up comedy, having a DJ. So you see how I just wanted a board and card game shop, and now here we are, a month into business. The idea has evolved so much; it's become so much more than it was. Yeah, I'm inspired. I'm motivated. I wake up every day and try to think about when and if I'm gonna post something. What am I gonna post? Trying to just be genuine and not come at all off as manufactured, because remember, that's one of the things that we want to avoid as a small business, is not coming off like a big business. Frequently what happens when you come off like a big business is it comes out the same time every day. It's the same general content. There's no variation. There's, you know what I mean, it's all strategized, planned. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do that. I don't think that, for the record, pre-planning your stuff, pre-scheduling your stuff, I'm sure that it's probably okay, but I think it should be a little more human. So on that front, I do apologize. Sometimes I post stuff at 9, sometimes I post it at 10:30. Sometimes I only post like 2 things a day instead of the full 3. And that's still part of developing a business and getting into habits and things like that I try to work on every day. Is what are the good habits if you're using social media as a platform? What are the best practices for like a website? So we're always seeking to get better, but I think we did the best that we could possibly do with the idea of we want to be open quickly too, right? So I'd initially said, you know, I want to be open October 1st, right? Well, once we talked about PC and console gaming, that pushed us out to November 1st, right? And obviously you don't want to open in the dead of winter, right? Because that could affect it. But coffee is going to be our driver. So if we have amazing coffee and it's cold outside, well, hell, that's our big driver anyway, right? So yeah, just want to give you a big ol' update, tell you the full story of why we are where we are. You already know why we call it Bizarre Grind. Because life is a bizarre grind, but you can't call it Bizarre grind, because then people will just think you're weird. And bizarre, Bazar, just means store, and it's a play on the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul. The bizarre grind is just, we want to have a range of options available for you that are of the highest quality. And we want to kind of change it around for you. Get different candy, get new flavors of Red Bull, get, new Totino's Pizza Roll flavors or whatever, get new flavors of jerky, kind of keep it up, make new t-shirts, come up with new slogans and ideas, ways to keep the business fresh, all the way around. And that's what a bazaar is, right? Where the offering is high quality, but it's changing. And that's kind of how we're going to embrace change as a business, is set to change, right? We are willing to accept change, and that helps propel us and compel us to do what we're doing. So yeah, I think that's where I'll stop it. I'm going to post this on YouTube, and I hope you'll listen, and I hope that you'll share. I just wanted to let you know what my wife and I are doing. And yeah, let me know if you've got anything for me.